What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel or my podcast, because I'm going to be posting some of these on both my podcast. If you're watching this from YouTube and you want to subscribe to my podcast, it's on iTunes. It's called Your Best Self Podcast with Hannah Dawson. And if you're listening to this on my podcast, go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to Hannah Dawson. Hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I do upload new videos, and share with anybody that you know that this could help. So today's video, you guys, is on, I'm just sharing going through this body dysmorphia, this eating disorder. And today, you guys, I've been seeing therapy. I have a therapist. I've been going to group. And so today I really wanted to share with you some myths around eating disorders and some truths around eating disorders, because there's so many misconceptions. And I also wanted to share this with you guys because I think it's really important. A lot of people can't afford a therapist, and a lot of people are afraid to go to group, and it took everything out of me to get into that group. I almost didn't go. The things that I felt towards that moment of entering that room, and like how nervous I was. And so I thought, you know what, there's some people that just won't go, or maybe you don't have the resources. So I thought, I'm going to share what I learned in hopes to bring you clarity, in hopes to maybe help you make the steps, the decisions, being aware. Maybe you have people in your life that have some of these issues, and to know that, not every eating disorder, body dysmorphia, and image distortion, they're all the same, just they have different extremes. They have different, my therapist said it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. So you think that you get one thing down, you're like, yeah, I'm doing great on that one thing, and it kind of comes up into another area of your life. And I experienced this, and when she brought this to my mind, it really made me start being more aware. And I think that's a really important part of recovery, is that you become more aware, and you have those tools to help you make healthier decisions and to know boundaries. Just like an addict or an alcoholic knows that when they become aware and they finally admit that they have an addiction, and then they get the help, they have these certain protocols, certain steps, there's certain triggers that they know that trigger them, certain things that they know that they have to follow in order to get free of that illness. And like going to AA and not going into a bar, or hanging around people that drink, because those are triggers. Maybe one day they'll be able to be around that or to minister to those people, but in the moment of recovery, they cannot. So I just wanted to share with you guys. I hope that if you know somebody that goes through this, if you battle an eating disorder, get help. That's the best advice I could say. Get help wherever you can. There's so many resources. I'll put links to resources in the Edmonton area here, and then maybe I'll kind of Google some help in other areas. But I am from Canada, so it'll be Canadian. And then I can put some links below. But the best thing, whether you think the degree to which you have it is little, or maybe it's extreme, it's all the same mentally. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's go over some myths first, and then we're going to talk about them, and we're going to break them down a little bit. The first myth: once you have an eating disorder, you will always have an eating disorder. The process of recovery lasts a lifetime and is filled with struggle. That's a total myth. That's something I believed. I believed that this was something that would never go away. And a lot of people think once you have it, you'll always have it for the rest of your life. And that's not true. So, reality. While food and weight loss may still come to mind for those who are recovered from an eating disorder, it is possible to live life without the obsessive thoughts, feelings, behaviors that accompany this disorder. Maintenance of a healthy weight and continued support are beneficial in this process. So, you're not always going to be sick forever, but here's the key thing: recovery. I don't know, I'm putting up my thumb. I meant to like say number one thing is recovery, reaching out. You cannot do this by yourself. So if you're telling yourself that, if you do this or that, like I said, and like my psychiatrist said, it is like playing a game of whack-a-mole. If you think that you can control one area, it's going to jump to another area until you admit that it's an issue, admit to somebody else that it's an issue, and take whatever steps you need to get help. But whether that's seeing a counselor, psychologist, going into group, I would say group is really awesome because you hear other people's stories, you realize you're not alone. Whether a person in there is extremely obviously has an eating disorder, like physically anorexic or really overweight or just looks normal. And this is what I experienced in it. There's all different walks of life, and we're going to get into some more myths and stuff. So that's the first myth, okay? The second myth is you are powerless over your life and your eating disorder, so treatment is futile. And that is not true. You are not powerless over your life and your eating disorder. There is help. And if you choose help, just like if you have an addiction somewhere else, you choose help, you can get better. All right, reality. Although you may feel helpless, powerless, unworthy, you are not. With the right tools and the right people and the right attitude, you have the ability to feel good about yourself. Seeking support is an important step in taking an active role in making changes. All right. Now, the third myth is eating disorders are only a phase. Therefore, treatment is not necessary. You will grow out of it. That's so not true. It's such a lie. Usually if you have an eating disorder, it can trigger when you're older, but you'll kind of know that it usually starts, I think, for girls at a young age, whether it goes full blown at that age or shows up in different areas. If you guys know my story, you know it bounced from different addictions. Anyways, yeah. So it's not just going to go away. It's not just a phase. You have to actively take care of it. You have to actively go through recovery to deal with it, or you won't be aware to triggers. You won't be aware to certain behaviors and patterns and things like that. All right. The fourth myth, you guys, is eating disorders are about food. So if you can mend your relationship with food, all will be well. That is false. Eating disorders have nothing to do with your relationship with food, and in general, if you have issues with food, it has nothing to do with your relationship with food. So there's no such thing as mending your relationship with food. It is all it's in your mind. It's a mental thing, has nothing to do with physical food, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. An eating disorder is a complex mental illness with biological, psychological, and sociological components to it. Simply eating right ignores the underlying issues of an eating disorder. Effective treatment of an eating disorder takes multiple approaches to identify and work through core struggles. And I love this because, a lot of the time we can think, oh, I'll just start eating better and choosing better foods and I'll start feeling better. But that's never going to happen. And it's funny, when you're more aware of these things, you really can see it in other people too. It's like when I had my breast implants removed, when I got sick and got by from breast implant illness, and other women I would meet that had implants and would be saying all these symptoms. I'm like, man, you need to get rid of those. And so it's like an eating disorder too. So I'm in the fitness industry, so I meet a lot of women, that don't even realize certain behaviors, like no taking rest days from the gym or using excessive laxatives because they feel bloated. I did it too. Fit tea or something like that. It's all over Instagram. It's in stores now. This is glamified, I'm going to say, eating disorders. This is like, you can eat what you want and then just detox it out. Our bodies naturally detox. We should not be taking that stuff all the time. It's just a way for us to relieve ourselves, to feel better from the food that we ate. That's really all it is. So now when I see this all the time, I'm like, that's not the right decision. That's not the right decision. But I made those decisions until I admitted and I was aware, and I realized that this thing was out of control. This thing had power over me. I did feel powerless, but I knew from dealing with alcohol and drug addiction that I could make a change and I could get my power back. I could have control over this issue. If I seeked recovery and if I took those steps, that I could get better. And so that was the last myth. So an eating disorder is a complex mental illness. So it has to do within your mind. That's why I said image distortion, the way you see things, perceive things in that mental, your mind's eyes, in your mind's eyes, the way you see, not with your physical eyes, that becomes warped and distorted. And so that's why, you guys, like, not just with like how my psychiatrist said, you can play like whack-a-mole, it goes from one area. You could be dealing with like your body issues and food and stuff, and then feel like you got that under control, and then all of a sudden you're picking your face apart, like now you need plastic surgery. I mean, it's evident. Just like an anorexic can be healthy and then look like, like it shows they're anorexic, like someone that they're before and then they've got so much plastic surgery and you're like, oh my gosh, you were so beautiful before, what have you done to your face? Because they're that mental image in their mind became warped, distorted, and it actually psychologically does something to you. So there's science based behind it, but I also believe that there's spiritual things behind that as well, right? Everything to keep you distracted from what you were called to do. And what a better way to keep you distracted than by your appearance, right? Because when you're so obsessed with your appearance, you can't pursue the things that are really important for you, that God has called you to do, because you're distracted, right? The enemy wants to take you out any way he can, and if he's going to do it through an eating disorder, he will. He'll mentally warp your images. It's spiritual, but the spiritual and the mind affects the brain. Your brain does what your mind tells it, and then your body does what your brain tells it. So it all starts from there. So the eating disorder starts with that mirrored image that you see in your mind, that distortion. Okay, you guys. So that, I also wanted to kind of dive into how the disorder, like how I said, my psychologist said, like, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. And she's like, it likes the eating disorder. Once you become aware, you can kind of distinct a voice. It's a voice that will bring shame. It's a voice that will tell you should be doing something. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And also what I learned quickly, I'll say now, is eating disorders and OCD, they're very intertwined. Sometimes, a lot of the time, you think that like you're not sure whether it's OCD behavior or an eating disorder. And a lot of the times people with eating disorders have OCD, being obsessive about counting calories, counting macros. That's an obsessive behavior. It's a way they relieve the feeling of anxiety around what they're doing with counting something. So that's OCD behavior. And so I'm learning a lot about that. Back to that whack-a-mole thing, I want to share with you guys just a personal story that I noticed that was happening. So dealing with this binge eating and things like that, because that was mine. I would never starve myself or make myself throw up. That wasn't my eating disorder. Mine was just excessive eating and eating too much, and then using laxatives if I felt too bloated and things like that. And then to tie it all in, I have tons of food allergies. So sometimes I wasn't sure if it was from the overeating, the sugar cravings, or craving more sugar cravings, and I was allergic to half the food, so I was even more inflamed and swollen, and it's just like a heap of layers that we've now peeled back and we're working through, and it's awesome. So anyways, the whack-a-mole situation. And so she talks about, how the eating disorder will like to jump from the dysmorphia, jumps from different scenarios. So for me, I felt like I got my eating down, and I wasn't using the laxatives and things like that, the diet teas, I should say. So I got that out and I felt good about that. But then I started getting up in the morning and doing like 60 minutes of cardio, which I would never do before. Like I that only lasted a couple of weeks anyways. And I told myself it was to listen to personal development and stuff, but in my heart, I could feel this feeling like, I don't know how I can continue to do this forever. I was so exhausted that I couldn't even do my weight workouts, which I love. And so I was almost dreading the mornings, even though it kind of made me feel good. It was a way OCD behavior to relieve the symptom of not being able to do my certain other behaviors. So even though I got one thing down, it came up in another area with over cardio, over exercise. And then it jumped to another area of buying like just silly things. And so it likes to jump around, and it's like an addiction. It needs that dopamine release. It's like, where can I get a fix? Okay, I can't get it from here. I can't get that release from here. I can't. And it comes down to what my therapist said. She says, you know, you got to learn to recharge instead of detach. And so a lot of those things I could just detach. Shopping, I could detach. Over exercise, I could detach. Like overeating, I could detach. Oh, let's, you know, get rid of this anxiety of overeating with drinking some laxative tea. Oh, I could detach. Like I'll just binge watch Netflix and forget about my day. I could detach. And so those were all detaching things, and they don't work. You have to recharge and figure out what those things are. And that's why therapy is so important. That's why group is so important. That's why it's really important, because without that, I would have never known that. And then you just spin your wheels. It's like, I got this analogy, and I think I said it last time, this hamster on a wheel. It's like, get off the damn wheel. You're not going to get the piece of cheese. If you get off the wheel, you could get the cheese. You're just going to spin your wheels. So that's kind of what it was like. And so I just wanted to throw that in there. And I want you to know that whether you think that, like, when people think of an eating disorder, they think of someone that's anorexic and like 70 pounds, 60 pounds. But if you think that that's what you have to be like to have an eating disorder, you fooled yourself. The dysmorphia is already kicked in. If you think that like you have it under control, it's already controlled you. If you think that you're like, you know, you're just kind of getting by, like someone that, you know, like is a really bad drunk. They don't drink every day, but they are so, when they do drink, it's like you don't even, they're sloppy. They do horrible things, say horrible things, get themselves into trouble. Then they have such remorse, such regret that they don't do it until the next weekend. But they don't think they have an alcoholic problem because they don't drink every day. Well, that's a lie all in itself. And so the eating disorder likes to do the same thing. The body dysmorphia, the image distortion likes to warp you to keep you in a cycle. And so I'm speaking to somebody here. Just because you are not underweight or extremely overweight, but you have those behaviors that you think that you can binge and then drink that diet tea. And I am speaking because this is in our world. Like, this has been so glamorized. It's disgusting that you can drink diet tea to relieve yourself, drink these detoxes every day when your body doesn't need them. And you're like, I'll just do it to relieve all that junk food that I ate. That's dysmorphia. That's eating disorder starting. And guess what? It gets worse. You might think that you have some type of control. I only do it once a week, or I only do it every few weeks. But let me tell you, it's going to become where you have to do it every single night. And you're like, it's like an addict. And you know what? The scary thing about that is you ruin your digestive system with those diet teas. Guess what? You will have a colon bag outside of you, or you will twist your intestines in your bowel and do such internal damage that you have to have surgery. And a lot of these fitness competitors, you hear about them having twisted bowels or stomach surgeries, and they're extremely lean, and you wonder, you know, if they have some of those behaviors. Like, it's not a coincidence. And so I just, like, I'm so strongly about this, like diet teas, detoxes. If you're struggling with this mental battle, like, it's going to relieve you. It's just feeding another avenue. It's like whack-a-mole. Oh, let's try this avenue. It's not so bad. These are natural. I got them from the natural path, but they, you know, overuse of magnesium pills because they give you diarrhea the next day. I'm talking to somebody here. Yes, that is a disorder. They're used for a purpose, but overuse is a disorder. Overuse is feeding that addiction. So back to the message. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Just those myths, those realities. So if you're someone that goes through it, you haven't got help, get help. This has honestly helped me, you guys, bringing it out, dealing with this. That's what I'm leaving with today, you guys. I love you all. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share this with somebody that it may help. And yeah, that's it. All right, you guys, have an amazing day. I will talk to you soon. Bye.